Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hotline League episode 186. It's been such an exciting week. So many interesting things, including one major thing that has been, well, it's not officially announced, but news broke today. We're going to be getting into so much of that here in just a second. But first off, I want to shout out Alienware and GameFuel for sponsoring the show. Always fantastic to have them on. And joining me is my constant co-host, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark?
Oh, great. My days are great. My life is great. Everything goes great.
That's fantastic to hear. You got a haircut recently, I think.
I did. True facts.
It looks great. I just
How'd
want to
that go?
say.
I sat in a chair and paid someone to chop this
I
shit
was
off.
just
How
gonna.
do you think it went?
It's great to see you. I just want to say you look great with the haircut. What have you been up to besides the League of Legends stuff this past week? You've been watching anything new?
I feel like the answer to that is yes, but I can't remember. Bachelor in Paradise started. Watched the first episode of that. Looks like it's going to be a good season. David Spade's really awkward on it. I don't know what he's doing there. I mean, I know he's doing it. He's collecting a paycheck. I don't know who decided to hire him to do it.
I saw a TikTok clip of somebody who thought he was Dave Chappelle, which I guess was a funny moment in that show. That's the only thing I've seen of it.
Probably the highlight of David Spade's week.
Oh boy, I like David Spade. He was great. What was the sitcom he was on in the '90s? That was like a magazine or something. Anyway, also Emperor's New Groove is fantastic. Okay, well, besides Mark's wonderful week, we have joined right now. First time ever. Dodo, you've not been on the show before, right?
I don't think so. My first time.
Well, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. And we should say that we ended up booking you as our guest before we even knew that Team Liquid was going to be in the finals. So I appreciate you going and making finals because it makes it look like we've secured an amazing guest ahead. Moments after.
Though, I would have just canceled it if we lost. On Saturday.
That's what you did. Okay, well, good to know. I will plan accordingly in the future. How you feeling lately? Because obviously it's great that you guys have made it to finals. It seems like you guys have been in an interesting path over the past month, where you entered playoffs as a team that many people were not predicting to make Worlds out of the top 5, and yet here you guys are now headed to finals.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing great in the past few weeks. This split has been the most difficult split that I've dealt with in my whole career, but things got figured out. We are playing great, and we're in the finals. We're going to Worlds, so yeah, I've been doing great.
Is this? I mean, it's funny to hear that, given that I know Spring 2020 must have been also a very difficult split for you. So it's great it's crazy to hear that.
That was hard, but this split was harder.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing well. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff, but first, I'm stealing back my little intro segment of the show to just say that I've also been having an exciting week where I've been no-lifing a game called Humankind that I didn't even really know about until last week when I got given a key for it by the dev or whatever. It's like a Civ type game. Highly recommend. I've got like 45 hours on it in the past 7 days, so it is very good.
It's new. It came out August 17th.
Yeah, I got it last week, and Tuesday when it came out, the agency I work with. What's that?
Get me a key.
Do you play those Civ style games?
Yeah, like Forest games.
Oh, really?
Give me a key. Yeah.
Well, I don't. I will ask if they have extras. Is that good enough for you, Mark?
As long as the answer is yeah, that's good enough.
Okay, very good. Well,
that's a no.
we'll look into it. All right, into the exciting news though, which is, Team Liquid going to finals. We already talked about that. A lot of TSM fans. Somebody said that they were hoping for this to be the TSM therapy episode for them. I'm not sure if that's the way it's going to go. Normally, people don't tend to.
Definitely have some about TSM.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll talk about it, but I don't know if there's going to be too much that is going to feel therapeutic. And then Worlds, allegedly, almost certainly, no longer in China, now going to be in Europe. I don't know if Dodo knows or not, but rather than putting him on the spot and making him feel very uncomfortable as he avoids throwing anything right under the bus. I'm just going to ask him to pretend he doesn't know regardless, and we're just going to go into the assumption that's all happening in Europe, so he can think accordingly.
I saw the rumors. I can't confirm anything.
Yes.
You know,
well,
but
regardless,
I saw your video, Travis.
we will talk about it. It's insane news, absolutely insane, because I think obviously, like, from a broadcast perspective, I don't think that the average viewer or the experience will necessarily be too different, other than I think that perhaps it might be a little bit more of a stripped down, simple experience, given that they have to plan this thing in probably about a month or so. I doubt that there was too much work that's been already done to shift it over, but it is crazy news, and I'm excited to hear what all of our wonderful callers think of the news as well. But before we get to our callers, Mark, I don't know if you have any questions for Dodo or anything that we should be chatting with him about.
Yeah, sure. I can lob some softballs at him. What was the odds heading into playoffs that you thought this would happen? Like, Santorum was only back for that weekend in week 9, if I remember correctly, is when he rejoined.
Yep.
And then, like, you had the 1 week practice going to C9. Beating the 3 teams in a row that you were collectively 0-9 against through summer, is this a surprise even for your own team, or like internally, did you feel very confident?
Well, honestly speaking, and also to the point that Santorin came back to week 9, I also didn't realize that we didn't play with our whole squad for basically the whole season, the whole split. We played the 1 game in week 1, and then we didn't play our whole roster until week 9. So I was actually, when I read that, I was like, wow, we just didn't play, with the whole team for basically a whole split, So going into playoffs, I was like 50-50 that we might make Worlds or we might not make Worlds. Because I think when we saw the week 9 games against the 3 teams, we played pretty well. The practice was, going well. But at the same time, we didn't have enough time to, gel together, figure out a lot of things that we could have, between the whole split. So I was 50-50. But after I saw us playing against C9 and how we were able to show what we prepared on stage, I was actually pretty confident that we could actually win the whole split. So yeah, I mean, like I would say, like, I was somewhat surprised at the level that our guys were playing, but at the same time, I was also being realistic as well.
When you say playing against C9, do you mean that match in the final week, or do you mean like during playoffs?
The playoffs.
Because that's what's been wild to me about the path that you guys took, is it just felt like you guys were making such tremendous leaps and bounds from week to week. And interestingly, I think this week was a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe you guys will disagree with me on this stuff, but from the layman's perspective, it felt like you guys were a little messier this weekend than you had been the last couple of weeks. But for the most part, it felt like there's just been insane improvements week over week throughout, from that last week of playoffs, or sorry, last week of regular season into playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. For last week, I do agree with you saying, like, we definitely didn't play the best, but at the same time, I don't want to credit 100 Thieves. I think they are the second best team. I don't know why a lot of people are like not giving them credit, but I think in my perspective, 100 Thieves are very consistent. They have very good players in every role. And I think they actually were able to take us to game 5. So even though we weren't playing as good as before against CNR or TSM, 100 Thieves played pretty well. But going into playoffs, we definitely tried a lot of different things to match our opponents, right? We would definitely try to have a plan going into C9, going to TSM, going to 100 Thieves. Our coaches and analysts just work their asses off, just figuring out, so what's our plan for this week? And we're gonna practice this, then we're gonna shoot on stage. So we've been pretty successful at that, and I think it's been working pretty well.
Were you surprised at all by like C9 and TSM for the most part throughout playoffs? I felt like they kind of underperformed expectations a little bit, especially C9 at the beginning. So I don't know if like as surprised as you were about TL's performance, were you surprised at all by how C9 and TSM played?
Um, Not really. From honestly watching, maybe TSM, but like from watching and basically studying, C9 and TSM, I didn't think they were underperforming like crazy, uh, in their series. Maybe like, I mean, last on Sunday when the C9 TSM match, I think they played pretty well. I think TSM played really really well. No, but it's what C9 did better, and the C9 was able to, have more, resilience, and they just actually like the game 2 and game 4, like they were actually in a really bad spot, but they were able to win those games and even go to game 5. So I think, I think they were playing pretty well, in the playoffs.
Yeah. Mark, do you have any quick follow up so I can go grab my game feel from the freezer?
Sure, you can grab it. I was just gonna throw in my 2 cents that yeah, it feels like 100 Thieves has been disrespected a little bit with the entire conversation going around like the bracket and all this other stuff, where people just think they got a free road in, even though I think when they played you guys, they pushed you further than other teams did. I think Travis saying you guys look sloppier maybe this weekend. I also feel like that's kind of how league goes. Is like when you play a better team, you can't get away with some of the stuff. They punish you more, and so you make a mistake that goes unpunished versus one team suddenly gets punished, and it looks sloppier, but it's really like just the other team being better. So I thought they looked good. I think they also attacked you guys with a different draft strategy. Were you surprised in the TSM series? And maybe this is, well, they're knocked out, so maybe it doesn't matter. But like, were you surprised when they picked red side and tried to like play top versus top, or were you expecting that when you went up against them?
Oh, you're talking about 100 Thieves?
Well, I guess rather I liked 100 Thieves not doing that against you and actually just like picking Orin and stuff. But like TSM in the series last week, they picked red side and they tried to like match Alfari basically by giving Huni counter pick and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
were
no,
you?
I mean, we weren't really surprised by that. I think they also have a plan to, beat, TL, right? And I think a lot of the times, I think 100 Thieves also, I think their plan was to basically hold off the game and, scale and focus on team fighting. And a lot of times that what we wanted to do basically counter that, and I think it just kind of worked in the favor with our plan, going into the series. And for TSM, I think that's also their strength. I think they have a pretty strong top side of the map, and they wanted to match that, and they just wanted to brawl it out. So I think that's what they came up with, but we ended up stronger. So, but I think just Offari, he's just a monster. He basically can take on anyone. So
The disrespect comment, Mark, that you made about people disrespecting 100T reminded me of the it's funny because we did that predictions run it that obviously had mixed reactions, and Tim for the most part has unfortunately not been accurate in the predictions that he made. But the TSM subreddit
Understatement.
yes, but the one thing he did get right was the TSM getting eliminated by TL and C9, though I think he had it swapped in the order that they would. But there's that big Reddit thread on the TSM subreddit that was just like the absolute disrespect for TSM in this Run It episode. They didn't get out. The real disrespect was the 100T prediction that they would not make it through. Though at the time 100T was slumping a little bit. But it's just a funny way that the things turned in that direction.
Yep.
But other than that, I think there's obviously a lot to talk about in terms of everything else this week. I'll just say really quickly, I did a little video earlier, so my about the Worlds thing, and then I'm sure we'll take some calls about it too. But I just think I'm like super fascinated to see how Riot pivots this, because I think a lot of people underestimate how much work goes into building Worlds for months and months and months in advance. There's like a whole team that does that opening ceremony, and that's not something you throw together like 3 weeks beforehand. And so I just think it is huge news, even if it is perhaps like difficult to figure out how to discuss it because there's a lot of unknowns at this point. But I'm really excited to hear from people. Mark, I remember we chatted a little bit beforehand, and you were less. It's less of a big deal, I think, to you.
The Worlds thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I admit I haven't really fully thought through the implications, and potentially there's some about future worlds and whatnot. So, I do think there is stuff to talk about. I pulled a caller for it, but personally for me, I fully expect to go to Worlds. Or, I mean, not me go to Worlds, but like for Worlds to happen, me be at home, be on a shitty sleep schedule, and just kind of be an owl. So
yeah, I guess it's the difference between you staying up late or waking up early.
Right. It's like, okay, now I get up at 6 a.m. instead. Okay. Instead of waking up at 2 a.m. I don't know. To me, it's all kind of the same thing. I don't really care.
Well, here's a question for you. Do you care if it impacts North America getting Worlds next year?
That's the part where I said I wasn't really forward thinking when you messaged me about it because I was in meetings and stuff, and like I saw the news that got reported, and I was like, all right, whatever. I didn't think about it, but I've since seen people's comments about it, and I'm like, oh, that would suck if that's true, and that's kind of what I pulled the call for. So I don't want to dig into it too much right now because we will have someone.
Well, I know you're already pulling calls. Do you want to explain? You look great, by the way. Here, I'll explain how the show works. So the show works. It's a call-in show. Dodo's never coming back on after experiencing this in our shouting match before the start. It's a call-in show. So if you want, you can join discord.gg/Travis. That is the Discord. And you can join that even if you're not listening live. But for the people that are listening live, please put your takes in the pleb topics or subtopics channel, depending on if you're a pleb or a sub. I know Mark has already pulled several callers, so perhaps no guarantees we'll take many more. But if you do want to get on the show, that is how you do it. And we do appreciate everybody who does sub and gets access to subtopics channel because it's just helpful. All right.
Pulling more. I usually pull in total of a show 6 to 8.
Okay.
And we got 5 right now.
Five
so
right
definitely
now, yeah.
More.
And we are starting the calls probably a little bit earlier than we have been lately, just because there's so much to talk about. So, do you want to go grab our first caller?
Sure.
Off Mark goes. Dodo. I think I'm picking up a little bit of feedback from your speakers or headset. If you want to lower your noise gate, I just heard the Discord noise as he left the room, which I would not hear in mine. An odd vibe is here. An odd vibe. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio. We love Ohio on the show. Where are you calling? Or what do you want to talk about on the show?
I'm calling of why TSM's year should not be considered a failure, and fans and analysts treating it as one will only hold back North America.
Oh boy. Okay, so it's not a failure not to make Worlds with an incredibly expensive roster. I'm excited to hear how you explain this. Go for it.
That's kind of that's kind of exactly where it is. The context of this. So yes, in the definition of a failure, not making Worlds with Huni, Spica, Power of Evil, Lost, and Sword Out, failure. Absolute failure, can't defend that. But, as a TSM fan, since Season 3, I can tell you holistically, this season was in no way a failure. Every year, I hear about the aggression that's needed from TSM over and over again. And this year, finally, they started doing it and playing with it with the addition of Sword Art. And they slowly scaled up and doing it. And I guess that's kind of what I want to see. It's all going back there, kind of getting scaled up there, and a lot. There's good future prospects as well for the team, as Lost did so well throughout the end of the year. He was the huge talking point for all the problems at the beginning of the year. Same with Sword Art, the same in the beginning of the summer split, and then throughout playoffs he played spectacularly well, especially in the last series. And then I guess the part about treating it as it will only hold back NA, we have to acknowledge how much people shit on TSM for not playing aggressively and playing passively. Like every time they went to the World Championship, they got smacked in the face, they played like a turtle, they tried to scale. That's what they got criticized for. This year, they finally did it in the last series that mattered, and I'm proud, and we should all be.
Okay, so the take is it's a failure in terms of They didn't make it to Worlds. You'll acknowledge that. But it's not a failure in that you didn't see them play this like slow or passive style and then go to Worlds and get 0-6 is what I'm picking up. Okay.
Yeah, they finally answered all the criticisms.
You know, one thing I was thinking about at the sort of on the topic of this and along the lines of was it really a failure is I remember Mark's power rankings at the start of the year. I was thinking about this as I was in the car today. And at the start of the year, I think Mark power ranked the teams as like it was like C9 or TL first or second, I forget what. Mark, you might remember. And then it was 100 Thieves. And it was supposed to be kind of spicy. You put 100 Thieves third, I thought, and then TSM fourth.
I don't think I did at the start of the year. I might have. I definitely did in summer after the Abadaga swap.
I'm going to look it up right now. But
I forget what, honestly, spring. I know I had C9 first because of Perkz.
You had 100 Thieves. You had C9, TL, 100 Thieves, TSM, FlyQuest. Oh, poor FlyQuest. Okay, well that was a miss, but maybe not on this fault.
Misses on there.
Yeah. But I mean that you predicted on January 11th when I posted this, the 3 teams that would be going to Worlds just based off of your 2021 power rankings. And I don't think it was that crazy. Yes, I know. Big ups for you. But I don't think at the time I remember teasing you being like, oh, Mark's like spicy take is that TSM is fourth and 100T is third, which I didn't think was that spicy. And so I think like this is not that surprising based off of where a lot of analysts thought these teams were going to be at the beginning of the year. So.
I actually said something similar on the dive today. I pulled up our summer split power rankings to be like, yeah, a lot of us predicted them to actually not make Worlds.
Yeah.
And to the caller's point about like enjoying the split as a fan, you know, like you can enjoy the split as a fan and still kind of fail at the end, but be like, hey, the ride was fun, kind of thing. I would actually love to get Dodo's opinion on this though, as a GM situation. You know, like if you were involved in the construction of this roster, knowing you spent a lot of money and all this stuff, like, would you right now be walking away thinking like, fuck, you know, or is it kind of like, I mean, obviously we want to go, but like, where would you land emotionally and like strategically on what happened?
Especially they brought back only one of the 5 players from last year, so reconstruction year, I guess. But yeah, go ahead, Dodo.
Yeah. I mean, if that happened, basically, you know, if I was in TSM shoes, if I was in Perkz shoes, I would say fuck. You know, they fucking failed. But you know, honestly, to the caller's point, talking about the improvements of TSM's play in general and being aggressive, I kind of agree. Where this split this year, actually, we had 5, you know, pretty strong teams, I guess, in LCS, and making your opponent stronger and making the whole region stronger is actually better for, you know, strong teams too. So we have like C9, EG, TSM, 100 Thieves, TL. You know, we had like 5 teams that were potentially was going to make Worlds. And then I think, to the caller's point, I think TSM getting, you know, their play style improved throughout the split, throughout the year. I think it's, if you want to find success there, I think there is. And, you know, to the point, like when you go to Worlds, you definitely want to be aggressive. You know, in the past when we won like, you know, the back titles, and when we, you know, a lot of TSM was winning, and you know, a lot of the coaches, even the players, just say, yo, let's just pick scaling and let's just pick, you know, team fighting, tanks, because it works in NA. Like if you want to win the LCS title, just do that. But you know, time after time when we went to Worlds, we got punished. You know, the aggressiveness from like Chinese teams. I think it was when right after the year after IG won, the meta did shift. You need to be aggressive to actually win games. And, you know, that was when, you know, NA was getting punished super hard. Other teams that weren't aggressive enough was getting punished super hard. So I think, you know, it's that kind of play style that we want to adapt as, you know, the teams. And I think we are actually trying to do that. That's one of our goals. And, you know, I think to the caller's point, he has some points, but from a GM perspective, like Mark said, I would have said like, once we lost the game 5 hours, I would have just yelled out, fuck, you know.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to imagine any world where a GM would feel happy with it. Question for you, Dodo. Do you think that the costs, the salaries, make it much worse, or as a GM, do you just sort of say like, I've got the money is somebody else's problem. I'm just building the team that they allow me to build.
It's Steve's problem. I don't, not just. No, I mean, money definitely, it matters. There's a lot of investment going on, and with investment, there's expectations, right? And there's always a lot of expectation coming with, like, there's pressure. You need to perform, in a lot of the sponsors, partners invest in you because they think you're gonna succeed, and if you fail, there's a lot of consequences. So I mean, it definitely matters.
Yeah. I'm super curious where TSM goes from here in the off season because to your point, there's a lot of pressure on the spend, and it's like, well, if you spent this money and you didn't make worlds, I don't know. It's I think it's just really tough.
That's something I would ask the caller, not Vibe. Like, how do you feel about this roster? Because you're saying it's not a failure, but you're also kind of admitting it still is, in some sense. Like, do you want to see an overhaul? Like, if you think, I know a lot of TSM fans don't like Lost. Like, are you personally hoping Lost is gone, even if you don't view this as a failure? Are you hoping that something changes with top or mid or whatever?
Definitely, I hope he stays. I mean, so personally, I off the top of my head, I think the only contract that's actually expiring is Power of Evils. And if that's the case, I'd love to see them put their new Academy mid laner takeover in, I believe. Because honestly, as a TSM fan, I loved Hooney's play. I doubted him so hard when he got signed, and he did nothing but improve me. And I love Power of Evil. I think he's great. I think if they want to keep him, I'd be more than happy. But I think it's time to start putting some NA talent in there. We've had some pretty sweet success with Spica. I think Lost and Sword Art, because we have him for another year, I believe, with the 2 years. I think that'll be a great combination if he's only gotten better, in my opinion. So I think if we keep them together, synergy only builds, I guess, strength, in my opinion. So I think that's the best way forward is hopefully they keep everybody together, or maybe move the Academy mid later up, even though he might be a little green.
So the only contracts that are expiring this year from TSM are Curry's, Peter Zhang's, and Bjergsen's. So all the other players, including their Academy players, are all through 2022 or 2023. In fact, on the LCS side, the only one on the LCS side that is through 2023 is Lost. The others are 2022. So I don't necessarily think they're
staff, Travis. You hate the coaching staff.
You're blaming the coaches.
Hey, get him out of here.
I'm not blaming the coaches. All I'm saying is, like, if you are worried about any contracts not renewing or anything like that, or teams, the team losing the players are fine. It's the coaches that are up for renewal. But
I have a question for. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was gonna ask Dodo in same question you asked the caller. If you were GMing your shoes, is this keep the roster together for the most part, or would you actually be looking to make moves? Because your goal is supposed to be Worlds. Looking at Team Liquid and C9 and 100 Thieves, all the talent on there, do you feel like you need an upgrade?
Well, the first thing you do when you don't make Worlds, or when you fail, when you don't get out of groups or whatever, you just get to talk to the coaches, talk to, for me, I talked a lot with Steve and the head coach at the point, and we just think about, okay, so is there a move that we need to make to change our roster first, right? And then we just try to figure out, what is our goal, for next year? Are we planning on building the strongest roster possible, spend everything we can, win Worlds? And we try to figure out what was the weakness, what was the problem this year, who can we replace, or who can we, support more to make things better for the team. And as for TSM, I honestly thought they played pretty well against the C9 series. I thought Lost was actually playing pretty well. I thought, Spica was playing out of his mind. But you can't really tell from outsider perspective on like who the problem is going to be, right? Like there's a bunch of things that goes inside. So I can't really say like this replace this player and then I think TSM will be better, go to Worlds. So, but I think Spica, for sure, I think he's the strongest point. And I think Lost, a lot of people think he's the weakest link, but I thought he played pretty well in the series. So, that's my point.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say on the dive, I was saying like it's kind of funny how much of a failure of the year is deemed based off the fact they lost a pretty close game 5. Like they could have 3-1 that or 3-0 that series if they didn't. I forget which game it was that they threw kind of hard. And it's like maybe you do run it back. It wasn't that far off.
I think the other question I have. Go ahead.
Sorry, but I think TSM definitely played super well. I think C9 was just able to play and hold on to. I think they just will win a lot more. I think there was a EU. I don't know if this is like just Perkz or like just G2 in general, but I think whenever you play against Perkz or G2, whenever we play against them too, like we are always like these guys don't fucking give up. Like they always find like the most crazy way to come back on the game, and you make one mistake, like they just snatch that and you just fucking lose. So it's like maybe Perkz had a big saying like when he was in G2, but like I think C9 just had like the resilience to just hold off the game that they were gonna lose, like game 2, game 4, and then they were able to like come back. So they were actually playing. I think it was really close, and they were just playing a little bit better.
The Perkz factor. The other question I had for you on that, people tend to think about it as, oh, do we replace any of these players, or do we like them? Do we think we're okay? But famously, I think TSM replaced Doublelift in part because they wanted to replace Biofrost. And so along those lines, I guess you don't always know who's going to become available. So I actually was having this conversation with somebody recently about the TL roster, because they're a huge fan of the TL roster this year, and they're like, man, even if they bust her out at groups, like I hope that we don't change this lineup or whatever. And it's like, well, okay, there's no weak link on the TL roster. We'll shift it back to TSM just to make sure that there's no awkwardness in you talking about this. But like, even if you decide there's no weak link in the TSM roster, do you ever just keep your ear out because you're like, is there like a Perkz level player that is potentially here? Is it like, okay, Lost didn't look that bad, but let's say some god tier AD comes in, it becomes available, who for some reason is, you don't have to worry about the import rule or something like that, or you have an amazing top laner and like Huni played great, but like you're like, this guy could, if we bring him in, he's going to do great. I don't know how much you factor in just what's on the market or who's available during the off season, even when you feel like maybe your team is doing well.
Honestly, like I always do have an eye out of the market all the time, because you never know what's actually going to happen, and I do try to plan not only for next year but like the year after, and the year after, right? And we always want to see like the potential of like this player, like is he on an upward swing, downward swing? I always try to keep an eye out, not necessarily because I want to replace one of my players, but I never know who I'm actually going to work with next year or the 2 years after. I didn't expect to work with the roster that we had in 2018 with like Doublelift and Pole Vaulter, Xfinity, Impact, and I didn't know we were gonna make those changes. I didn't know we were gonna change Doublelift in 2020 spring, right? Like so we just always have an eye out for the market, and that definitely benefits you in the long run.
I guess it's an example of like, maybe you think Lost played okay in the playoffs, but if Danny becomes on the market, you're like, hey, we can get this like 17-year-old rookie who seems to be playing great. That's probably a pretty good example of something where at least maybe you're considering it in a different way, even if you think Lost did fine.
And always, and this is what actually Kane told me a long time ago when we were coaching. When you have 5 players, even though they're all strong players, they're playing really well, there's always gonna be that one player that you're gonna try to blame on. There's always gonna be a scapegoat, and people will always try to find the weakest link of the player, and that's not necessarily because they're bad players, but it just kind of naturally becomes that way, where you just try to find the weakness of the team, and I thought, always, we just had all the teams. You just have to find, you try to find like a scapegoat, and I don't think the teams themselves shouldn't really look too hard on that part. It's like all speculation from outside. So
Yeah. Very good. Well, hey, caller, thank you so much for the call. I don't. If your basic premise is this year was not a failure for TSM, I disagree, and it sounds like you even kind of disagree. But at the very least, perhaps you're just happy they went out swinging. That's probably a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Failure in like they didn't get to Worlds, yeah, but they finally did. Like they were aggressive, and that's what everyone's been wanting them to do for God knows how long.
Well, do you have anything you want to shout out before we go on to our next caller?
I'd like to. Nothing really. Shout out to the Odd Squad. Just group of good dudes. Nothing real else. Thanks for having me. Shout out to Alienware, I guess.
Thank you so much for calling.
No
Catch you
problem.
next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Off goes. It's so funny, Dodo. For some reason, the Discord noises more than anything else comes through your microphone. I'm not sure why, but my stuff is disabled. I don't hear noises of people leaving and joining the channel. Let me just double check, but I'm in streamer mode, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, maybe you just disable those noises.
Yeah.
Shout out to some folks who have subbed. Thank you to.
We're here.
Oh, never mind. Mark was very quick this time. No Boat is here. No Boat, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Columbia, Missouri.
Columbia, Missouri. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about how Riot deciding to push Worlds over to Europe just shows how little they care about North American NA, and whether or not we're even going to get a Worlds in the next 2 years even.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on that? Take a bit.
Yeah. So kind of watching it, and I haven't actually got to see Worlds in NA yet, but whenever we had the coronavirus and we were supposed to get Worlds this year, but they decided to do Worlds again in China, and then again we're getting it to where I feel like if Riot wanted to be fair towards all the regions, that they would ship Worlds to NA rather than Europe, because technically this year we were supposed to have it. And it shows 2 years in a row that Riot has basically overlooked NA in terms of whether or not we actually get to have it. Which is kind of, I don't know if unfair is the correct word or not, but it shows that they really just would rather have good viewership and having it in China rather than actually just sticking to what they said with it being every single year is a different major region.
Are you at all? What do you think of COVID and that factoring into the equation?
I mean, we did it in China last year, right? In the height of the pandemic, we were able to have what I like to think of as a quality Worlds last year in China in the middle of the pandemic. So I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do it here as well.
True. My understanding is that the COVID cases are very different in the U.S.
I'm not sure what they are in China right now, or even I think they're getting worse in Europe as well. If I saw the article that EU or UK has 50,000 COVID cases a day or 30,000 COVID cases a day.
Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, the important thing to remember here, because I think as Americans we oftentimes think of Europe as one, as if the same way we think of the United States as if it's one country, but it's actually a situation where there's a ton of different situations that are going on in all these different countries, different rules around. I mean, I think a lot of them share similar visa situations because of the Schengen stuff. This is ignorant American guy talking, but you can, certain countries, it's, I think, not as bad as other countries. For instance, they were able to do MSI in Iceland earlier this year just because of what state that country was in. Whereas I don't know if they would have, they would not have been able to do it in the U.S. during that time. So I think it's that's the important thing to think about here, is that there's a lot of different scenarios going on in Europe right now that they can say okay, well, maybe case rate is relatively low in France, and they allow us to do a big stadium event. So maybe we'll do something there versus what's going on in Germany, etc.
Yeah, I admit that I thought this take was going in a different direction. That's maybe my fault for not realizing, but I feel like my concern as a North American fan would be that the reason the China event is not happening here this year is because there presumably would be some concerns about having in-person events still, if it wasn't China. That was my assumption of like why it's going to Europe, is because if it's going to be a like kind of no fan event anyways, and they already gave that one to China last year, this was supposed to be like the, hey, China, you get fans one, but COVID's worse than they thought. This is pure speculation. I have no fucking inside sources. I
Sure.
don't talk to anyone about logistics stuff, but I understood it as like, hey, next time we go to China, we want it to be the big shit, and like it's not the big shit this year, so let's keep the cycle going.
So
That was the-
Fion.
So that's what I assumed, and Europe is probably in a better space for getting people in the country. As you said, it depends on the visas, depending on which country you're actually talking about. But I saw in the Reddit thread some people saying that there were some relatively easy ones about like tourism being for 3 months or something and not being too bad. And the United States, obviously, with the fact that we just canceled finals for New Jersey, doesn't feel like Riot's very confident about having it here, and so you're basically as Korea or
Well, that begs
Europe.
the question: Is China getting a Worlds next year when we were supposed to get a Worlds again?
Yeah, so that's the bigger
that's
question.
Why I thought you were that's why I thought this call was being angry about what this probably means for next year.
That is what I'm angry about. Is that when are we actually gonna get a Worlds if we keep shipping Worlds off to another region over and over and over again, trying to get China the best one, then going to Europe instead, and what happens next year if COVID's still happening, and is China going to get it again? Is Korea going to get it again? Are we not going to get a Worlds in the next 5-10 years?
Well, first off, I don't know if it'll be 5 to 10 years, but I am worried about the next 2 or 3. I think here's my concern. If I am Riot, I'm just like, oh, dear God. Because I feel like every region can make a great argument for why they deserve Worlds, I don't know, next year or the year after or something, right? Like China was supposed to have this crazy 10-year anniversary, huge Worlds that was going to showcase all the different locations that they have, all these different cities. You go to all this stuff, and quite frankly, like China is the place where esports, at least in League, is biggest right now, from viewership perspectives, from team perspectives, from infrastructure.
It's not close either.
Yeah, it's on a whole nother level, and you have the majority of your fans there. And so, like, China can make a great case for saying, like, hey, you promised us that we would get a real Worlds, and here it is in 2021, you're not giving us. NA hasn't had Worlds since 2016. I think we were supposed to get Worlds last year based off of the cycle of the 4, but then they were like, oh, we're going to give China one and for 10 year, because I think they wanted to give a lot 10 year. So now NA has a great reason. If you give EU it this year, but it's like a shitty one where there's no audience allowed, and like maybe it's mostly taking place in Iceland again or something, who knows, then like Europe can be like, what the hell, when are we getting ours? And then just Korea sitting over there being like, hello, we are Korea, where's our World? So it's like I feel for Riot. Even the NA part of me is like, holy shit, they better fucking give us our Worlds next year, because I think the region needs a little bit of an influx of hype and lifeblood for our League of Legends esports. Not that it's dead or anything like that, but like that having Worlds here could do a huge amount of work for all sorts of stuff, you know, even when you're filling out Staples and Madison Square Garden and all that stuff. But the other part of me is just like, oh my God, can you imagine being at Riot and having to make one of these impossible decisions on where Worlds is supposed to be for the next year and the year after and all that stuff? It's like, if you tell NA, sorry, you didn't get it in 2020 or 2021 or 2022 when you were supposed to have it based off rotation in 2020.
I would probably riot at that point.
Holy shit, people are gonna lose their minds, including me. So like, it's just such a fucked situation. I think that they'll probably leverage MSI is my best guess. I bet you they somehow try to leverage MSI to be like, hey, for instance, NA, you're not getting Worlds, but we're going to give you MSI, and we're going to go to multiple cities for MSI, and it's going to be like a big MSI or something. I don't know. But I'm so curious how this goes. I don't know, Dodo, if you have any opinions on this stuff.
No, I mean, I hope your plan sounds great, Travis. But I think, yeah, I'm at the same boat, worrying that we might not get like a Worlds event anytime soon. I mean, like I was super bummed that when we couldn't go to the finals this week. We should have been in New Jersey, in like 3 days. But it's just how it is with COVID. And I'm sure Riot didn't just make this decision lightly. They probably had like bunch of meetings, and then they just had like multiple pressure from everywhere, and especially them having to cancel China. Like it's huge. So it's like, and I mean, like Riot's probably gonna come up with an announcement. Like this is all speculation, but they're gonna come with an announcement. Probably soon. I'm assuming, and we'll see how it pans out. But as an NA fan as well, I definitely want some kind of event happening in NA too.
Well, it's so funny because you have to. That announcement must be one of the most difficult things for Riot to figure out how to word, because you have to. Clearly, there are reasons why they felt like they couldn't do it in China. I mean, Fion was tweeting about how it's very difficult. He wrote, "It's very difficult currently to get everyone to China, including production and teams, to fully deliver on the vision they have for Worlds." And I know there was a brief period of time where it was looking like I might try to go to Worlds and in China this year, and the amount of paperwork and all that stuff to just hopefully get through. I can imagine it might be difficult, but I think it's really difficult for Riot to explain. It's a bit of a different situation saying, hey, the US makes it really difficult to get people in right now versus perhaps saying China makes it really difficult. So I'm so curious to see what the wording is on this stuff, and I'm very curious to see how because to the caller's point, to everyone's point, the number one question from NA fans will be like, but what about us next year? And so I feel like they have to say something, but I can't imagine. They have 4 weeks to figure this shit out. I'm sure they are focused on Worlds right now. They are almost certainly not going to give us any kind of answer on what's happening next year. So it's just such a clusterfuck. I don't know. I'm very curious. But yeah, by the way, caller, I totally agree with you. Like they better do some good shit for North America, because I think NA fans are going to start to get
2018, and if I don't get to go to Worlds, I'm gonna be so sad.
Yeah. Maybe they should just offer any NA fan a free trip to China next year if they want to go.
Funny story. So in 2016 Worlds, I wasn't living in LA, but I was like nearby. I could go to it, and I think someone was like, "Hey, do you want to go to the World Finals?" And I was like, "Nah, I'll just watch at home, and I'll go next time." Because the first year I was working in the broadcast, I'll be like, "I'm sure I'll get to go to one in NA anytime, within the next couple of years, 3 or 4 years, whatever. I'll just go next time." I would love to go back and tell me like, "Bro, go to that fucking finals."
It's not. You know what the thing is? It's like finals is fun, but it's for me. When it was in NA, it was so fun to go from like SF to Chicago to New York to LA and have that experience of like touring all these different cities with all esports and meeting the fans in all these different places, and like as an NA person getting. And by the way, I wish that they hopefully will include the next time they do it in Worlds a location in Canada, but it's so fun to be able to pull the spirit of the region in and the cities they're in into all these different world stops. So I don't know, but I'm with you, Nobo. I hope this works out for North America, and I'm really worried about the decisions they're going to be forced to make. And by the way, there's a lot of reasons to focus on other regions, not North America right now, as much as I want them to. So I'm kind of nervous about where they're going to go with this. Either way, Nobo, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
Alienware, Game Fuel, all the cool things with that. Shout out to all my homies that are watching. Appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. And then follow me on Twitch if you want. Noboat, NOB0AT.
Thank you, Noboat, for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Have a good one.
Okay, we're taking a quick break. Speaking of Alienware, to talk about Alienware. You might see above Dodo's head the word Alienware right next to training facility. There we go. Look how beautiful it is. It is awesome to be partnered with Alienware, and Team Liquid was able to make finals. And honestly, I don't know if that team would be even making Worlds if it wasn't for Alienware sponsoring them. I mean, I'm not legally allowed to say, make big statements about what kind of performance these Alienware computers and monitors and everything do for Team Liquid, because there's no clinical evidence. But who knows? Who knows if they'd even be going to Worlds? We might have a very sad Dodo on right now. Well, I guess maybe he'd have dodged it if it was the something else training facility. Okay. So either way, if you want to go to Worlds, just like Team Liquid is doing, I don't know where I'm going with this. Alienware.com/Travis, code Travis save 10Q save 10Q3, or maybe it's in the description. Okay, we changed it recently, but I'll also drop that link into the Twitch chat right now. Thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring us. I might be, for all I know, going to Europe soon, and if that's the case, it will literally be financed by Alienware. It's great to have a partner like them on, because in a month from now, I might have to hop on a plane or get some last minute tickets to Europe and stay in some hotel or something, and I'm not worried about that financially, at the very least, because Alienware support is able to make something like that happen for me. So thank you so much to Alienware. We love them. Go check out their amazing products. And I appreciate their support of the show so much. All right, Mark, you want to grab the next caller?
Yeah.
Off he goes. Thank you to Relhan1, Shiniba, Darth Nomi, Sally Czar, Sandy Toes, I love you chat, for 44 months. Real Foxy gifted a sub to TL Happenstance, Alermo, Zarin, a Purple IQ for 35, and Fez is here. Fez, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Alabama. Welcome back to the show. You've been on before, yes?
Yes, I have.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
What I want to talk about tonight is that I think 100 Thieves will win the LCS this weekend due to their big improvements in the playoffs and just a slew. The other teams always underestimating them, essentially. And plus, I think their next match against C9 was pretty shaky in their series versus TSM, even with TSM's draft blunders that they had in a couple games.
To get this right, you're talking about the weekend, just the Saturday, right? Not the Sunday match?
No, I think they're going to beat you guys too this weekend.
Oh, okay. That's a hot take.
Core is pissed. He showed up to mean mug you for thinking that.
Yes, exactly.
He heard you, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I think they just learned a lot in the series that they played against you guys, and although I think when they do face TL again, that TL will apparently take it more seriously, according to Jensen's interview with Travis earlier. But I still think that 100 Thieves was saving some stuff for this weekend.
Dodo, you were saying you feel like people underrated 100 Thieves, and Mark, you were saying people have been disrespecting 100 Thieves. So clearly, this caller agrees with you guys, and that's why he's so confident in them.
That's true. Dodo's predicting 100 Thieves to beat his own team.
Yes, that's the takeaway.
3-0, it's over.
Okay, well, Mark, before we throw to Dodo to defend his team's honor, what do you think? How's 100T looking versus C9, and then maybe potentially TL if they can get past C9?
100T versus C9. I think I was talking with Azale about this on the dive. We both kind of your head says 100 Thieves. I think watching playoffs, watching the majority of summer, 100 Thieves looks like the better team, but it's just really hard to not to count out C9 and think they're going to lose. Even that TSM series, we talked about how maybe they should have lost. Their early game still looks pretty sus. And I think even some of their players are talking about that afterwards. And 100 Thieves early game looks really good. They are arguably the best early game team, depending on how you want to posit that. You can make that case. And so it makes it scary as a matchup. So I think 100 Thieves is favored against C9.
I'm pulling up this tweet right now. I'm not going to show it on screen because it takes too long. So yesterday, a person who was just on the screen tweeted first seed TL, second seed 100T, third seed C9 happened in 2018 and will happen again. So Core JJ believes 100T will make it to the finals. I don't know. So that's certainly it's happened then, but I feel like much more recently than that, we have seen a TL C9 finals. And here's what I will say. No disrespect to TL, no disrespect to C9, but going into this playoffs, and especially, you know, as things were progressing in the beginning of it, I was like, oh shit, maybe this is the year everything's different in North America. You know, in Europe, we saw finals that didn't have G2 or Fnatic during spring, and over here, perhaps we'll see a finals that doesn't include any of the big three. But no, I'm just going to go back and rely on what almost always happens, which is we'll see TL C9 playing in finals against each other. A classic matchup of either, you know, TL, C9, or TSM mixing it up in the finals. We've seen it a million times in spring and summer. So I kind of feel like, based off historical precedent, which I know is not Mark's favorite type of analysis, and he's looking disgusted right now, I predict that the narrative will tell me that we're going to see C9 and TL in the finals. That's where I think it's going to go.
Dodo, who do you think is winning between those two?
My perspective is pretty close, but I agree with 100 Thieves. You know, I agree with Marks, because I think, first of all, I think, you know, 100 Thieves, like I said, is more consistent. And they, you know, in our own experience as well, you know, they put us to the test a lot more, and they have a lot more flexibility, you know, in their play style and champion pool. And at the same time, I hope, you know, Reaper working with C9 for so long, he knows how, you know, even the players change a little bit, he knows he has a good plan for playing against C9. I hope so. So I feel like 100 Thieves is a slightly better team currently, based off of our play against them in the playoffs. So I would say, you know, 100 Thieves will play 100 Thieves on Sunday.
Here's the thing, Dodo. Back when I used to, you know, when I saw Perkz play on G2, this is a guy who, like, he would just never give up. You never saw G2 give up. That team just would, even when they're about to lose a game, they would just pull off some clutch, especially in these big moments. And so for me, I think 100T will put up a great fight, but just from knowing Perkz and seeing what he's been able to do with C9 and seeing the same thing from G2, it's hard for me to imagine that doesn't happen this weekend. That's why you're wrong. Okay, so you guys both think 100T will be facing Team Liquid. So Dodo, I'm pretty confident that you expect TL to then beat 100T, so we don't need to spend too much time on that, especially because you probably won't tell us how you'll do that, because Papa Smithy's in the chat. But Mark, how do you think that match is going to go?
I think TL is the best team in playoffs right now, but I do think that series that they played was interesting. I don't know who gleaned more from it, because it did feel like both teams could have even won Game 5. I don't know how Dodo and the rest of the team feel about that Tom Kench pick, but I definitely hated it, and it made it really nervous.
Jensen did not like it. I asked him about it, and he's like, yeah, you know, Jensen, I was like, so what's up with that Tom Kench pick in the interview? And he's like, you know, I think it was just a thing where we realized that we could do this, but he's like, but in my mind, Tom Kench doesn't do much, so I was a little surprised by it too, or something. I'm paraphrasing, but very clearly he did not agree with the Tom Kench pick.
Yeah, okay, because I mean, if you go back and watch that game, there's a play where like Santorin's getting jumped on, and like he actually survives it on his own with like his ult and stuff, and Tom Kench is just standing next to him the whole time, like ready to devour him if he needs it.
Yes.
And then he'll go and get 2 kills in that fight anyways. I'm like, God, just imagine if they had a support who actually did anything.
Yeah.
How hard they would have ran that fight over.
Yeah.
And like you could argue like, oh, the posturing made them scared to kill Santorin, but it's like, also if you just had a real support, you know. And then the next 3 or 4 fights, all that happens is Core JJ eats Santorin and then dies. And then finally they win a fight where, you know, he actually went in at the right time. Like, yeah, there were instances where it did do things, but I'm just like, man, He's maybe one of the best players in North America playing Tom Kench and just nut hugging Santorin ready to eat him.
I'm waiting for Core JJ to show up at the window again and mean bug you for trash talking his Tom Kench pick.
So on that point, like I think there's draft adaptations that TL can make. Look at that situation. Maybe there's another pick they would have gone and stuff. But I also think the same thing's true for 100 Thieves. Where at game 1, I hated their draft. Like this really safe snowballing thing. And I was like, you guys got to play more early game. You got to play more aggressive. And then of course, game 2, they come out with Diana Aurelia, and it looks a lot better. So I think when these teams match up, it'll be cool because I think there's enough learnings for both teams to actually change up their game plans a little bit. Like, okay, at least based off this series, the game plan was weak side someday. It wasn't like TSM where they tried to contest him. They just left someday on an island and gave him Ornn. What's our best plan for Ornn? And I think both teams have a lot of game planning that they're able to do. And it does actually make the series... Like, I don't think the same shit's going to happen as in this series. So I do favor TL a little bit. I think that it's easier to be like, here's the Ornn shit, here's what we want to do into it. And it worked well enough last time, what they did. And as well as the fact that TL could have 3-1 that series. I mean, they had a 12,000 gold lead, and they dropped a fight.
Don't make Dodo relive that moment.
How was the team?
But the team was actually pretty tilted after that. As in, some of them were more just like, there's different kind of tilt, right? Like there's angry tilt and there's like silent tilt. The team was pretty tilted. Alfari was actually furious. He was like super mad, and he was going into like third game, guys. Take this anger to beat these guys. Like take this fierce anger to just shit on them. And then it's right. But we were pretty tilted after that.
Another question that's totally random and off topic, but like we had the cam on you guys during one of your huddles after, and people were just staring at the camera. Was Cole just off screen from the camera, or did Ben convince you guys to stare into the camera?
Ben is convinced. Well, the production Ben had a talk secretly, and then we just stared at the camera.
Okay, I was losing my shit on the analyst desk trying to talk about the series. You guys are staring at us, and I'm like, aren't you guys prepping? Like, what are you doing?
We're just intimidating the opponents. They're also watching the screen, like looking at us, right?
I was gonna say you guys are wasting time. I'm gonna switch to thinking you guys will lose in the finals if that's the thing. But now I'm realizing it was mind games. So you guys are playing next level. That's crazy. Papa Smithy says they weren't even watching. So it seems like that strategy failed. Perhaps
you lost to a team that wasn't even prepping between games. How does it feel?
The funny thing is, like, we were actually between games, we were in the rooms, and then we just wanted to go outside to get some air, and then like Ben brought like frisbees, the things to throw, so we could just have fun during like the break. So I mean, like it is a serious series that we should be prepping at, but at the same time, I think it's good just resetting, having some fun.
Literally a for fun region, by the way. Just for if anybody's ever had any doubt, Dodo's out there playing frisbee with
drinking
people.
a beer.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God. Okay. Well, great. Anyway, based off everything Dodo just said, I'm switching my vote. I do think 100T will come through, and then I do think they'll win final. So thank you, Fez, for the info. Is there anything you want to shout out, Fez, before we go on to our next caller?
I want to shout out the imports in the LCS because I feel like they get a lot of shit, and they get
a lot of money.
Well, yeah, they get that too. But, I think that everybody is in this craze for North American talent. And sometimes I really appreciate TL's, trials with Alfari. I really thought that was done and dusted. But I have to say, at least as a 100 Thieves fan, that TL turned it around, and I did not expect it. So, congrats to them so far.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Fez, for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
All right, off mark goes to grab the next caller. Thank you, everyone, for the scam train help. Speaking of that, thank you to Donardo for 10 months, Dasher7777, Acam Liberated, Kanoke, and Inscrutable for the 4 months. We got TomSoloMid here. TomSoloMid, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Long Island.
Long Island.
Back?
You've
Back
been on
after
recently.
last week.
Yeah.
When he thought
Remind
I'd
me,
never
what
bring
was
him
your
back.
call last week? Was it about TSM?
Yeah, it was.
Didn't you?
It
was the one where
I had to say to Peter Dunn that he was undeserving of coach of the split to his face.
Right. That's right.
Oh, wait,
right
was
after
that
you joined.
yours? I thought yours was the one where I was arguing about TSM not. What I thought was that not you?
Nope, I didn't get on last week.
No,
Who was
you're
the
thinking
TSM
of. I
fan?
know who you're thinking of. You're thinking of the caller where you were like, "This take is actually boring."
TSM fan. Sorry. There's two
Yeah.
TSM fan names. OP TSM fan and TomSoloMid. My
You
bad.
heard
my
it here
bad.
first. There are only 2 TSM fans.
Yeah. Now after yesterday.
You guys have a lot of accounts for 2 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
TomSoloMid. Okay. So that's right. I remember you. It wasn't last week. It was the week before because we had Peter.
Yeah,
Dunn
yeah, I
on,
remember
and yeah. But what is your take this time?
So my take is that TSM kind of got screwed out of the third world spot. So basically, even though TSM got first in the regular season, they got the overall more difficult playoff bracket to play through. Like even Alfari tweeted out yesterday saying that if they were on the other side of the bracket, they would have probably made Worlds. This isn't necessarily hindsight either, because people like Parth and Santorn were even tweeting about this. There was a little controversy before the playoffs started, specifically with the whole 100 Thieves playing their academy roster against Evil Geniuses, which kind of, may have influenced who got third place, which again, it's not really 100 Thieves' fault for that, because it's the bracket's fault for that. So, and this even gets worse if 100 Thieves lose to C9 on Saturday, because if 100 Thieves lose to C9, this playoffs, they would have beaten 1 5th or 6th place team in Evil Geniuses, then lost to TL and C9, which is the same exact record that TSM has right now. They beat a 5th/6th place team, but lost to C9 and TL. One of the ways you could have prevented this is through dynamic reseeding, but I understand that there are a lot of issues with this. And Mark, I believe that you were talking
I was going
a
to
lot about how you
ask.
didn't like it.
I was going to ask. Mark has been the most vocal opponent. And so I'm just curious, like, Tom, did you know that Mark was pulling you in here just so that he could assassinate you live on air?
I did also, that was only half my take. The other half of the take was like, I understand that there are issues with dynamic reseeding, so I would have liked to see a gauntlet that ran parallel with playoffs so that the 6th through 3rd place team would have been, like, you have 5th and 6th play each other, then the winner of that plays the 4th place team, then the winner of that plays the 3rd place team for the 3rd world spot. This would push back, like, instead of only winning 1 series for the 1st and 2nd place, they would need to win 2 series, and then 3rd through 6th would need to win 3, etc.
So you want this to run concurrently, and also you only mentioned 6 teams. Do you also mean 7 and 8, or no?
No, they wouldn't make that's probably too many games.
Okay.
So let's ignore. Sorry, but the second half of the topic with the format suggestions, I tend to just kind of zone out on those because they're probably not going to happen. I understand there's a lot of different formats that you can make, and they're going to have different advantages and disadvantages. So I won't go too much on that part, but I'm definitely down to talk about the first half of the take. But before I do, I want to hear, Dodo, your opinion. Is TSM actually the 3rd strongest team, and did they get screwed?
I don't think so.
Wait, how could they be? Because if they're the 3rd strongest team, you guys both think 100T is the 2nd strongest team, and they're going to make finals over C9. And if TSM just lost to C9, then there's.
So I guess I should have already known the answer before I asked Dodo, but I just wanted it stated, clearly, or whatever. Pick his brain to make sure.
Sorry, go ahead, Dodo.
No, I didn't think so. I mean, obviously the dynamic seeding could have been better. Who knows? But honestly, this is better than what we had in the years before, where it was just a single elimination playoffs. We have double elimination. And they have multiple chances this time. To make Worlds, and I think yes, their side of the the playoff seeding could have been difficult, but you never know. Maybe TL never made it. Maybe TL was never strong, and we were falling apart inside, and maybe we were weaker. So you never know going into playoffs. So I think it's just really hard to tell.
Yeah.
Do you have to? sorry, Mark. Before you go into your rant, I was going to ask: do you have to, if 100T beats C9 this weekend, does it definitively prove that the TSM was not the third best team and that they didn't get screwed by it?
My 2 cents is that like matchups still matter, even in close matchups. So like there's a world where the C9 beats 100 Thieves, but TSM still would have lost 100 Thieves in theory. But like that's starting to get pretty into the weeds, and like it'll just make you sound salty that you're wrong if you say that. So like I don't really care. I mean, if C9 beats 100 Thieves, I mean, I would say that they probably clearly ramped up over the course of the playoffs, which happened to TSM themselves last year when they lost to Golden Guardians in the first round, then beat them in the second. Like playoffs is weeks long, people improve, but that's neither here or there really. So I wouldn't get too far into the weeds. If 100 Thieves beats them, sure, let's go with that. TSM was never good. If C9 beats 100 Thieves, let's go with TSM got robbed, even though you don't even know how that matchup would have gone. TSM versus 100.
I think if you asked all the LCS team actually before going into playoffs, I think it was pretty sure that 100 Thieves was the second strongest team going into playoffs. You know, I think throughout the whole regular season they were strong. They were playing good. Going into playoffs, we thought they were a strong team. So I feel like even if they chose their opponents, I feel like TSM would have chose, if they had to play against us or 100 Thieves, they probably chosen us.
Dodo, who did the team? Because you said people would have mostly said 100T was the second best. Who would have said is the best? TSM?
I guess like not definitely first, but like it was like 100 Thieves and TSM or C9. Yeah.
Can I just add something real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
If there was dynamic reseeding, TSM would have chosen Evil Geniuses, not 100 Thieves.
Well, not reseeding.
Could have.
You mean selection? Because by reseeding, what happened would actually still happen. But by opponent selection, they probably would have picked EG.
My apologies.
We don't know for sure. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure. So anyways, so here's the thing. I love just poking at things. I actually don't have a strong opinion on this in my heart of hearts. Like, if you wanted dynamic reseeding or you want first playoff bye to get to be able to pick who they play, fair enough. I don't really care. But what I will say is that a lot of the arguments that people make kind of can be defeated by their own logic quite easily, and that's what I started tweeting about later on, in a snarky way because it's Twitter. I don't want to be a dickhead, but so the argument that the regular season didn't do a good job seeding the bracket, that's basically what you're saying, right, Tom? That like, well, EG's actually stronger and TSM got screwed, or EG's actually weaker and TSM got screwed by 4-5 being stronger than 3, right?
Yeah.
So why do you think first is actually first? If you don't believe the regular season did a good job seeding 4, 5, and 3, why do you think it did a good job seeding 1 and 2?
But couldn't I just say, like, then what's the point of a regular season?
Yeah, you can go that far if you want to take to that logical extreme. But I'm just pointing out in this situation, your logic, like the logic that it didn't do a good job here, in a vacuum can apply to the whole bracket.
I do agree with that. So
yeah, so my point would be, why are we giving the first seed? They already have a bye. They already have side select through the entire tournament. They already are in upper brackets, so they get to skip all this. They have as many advantages. They have more advantages than anyone else in the entire bracket because they have side select the entire way through. Even though people say, oh, there's no difference between 1 and 2 seed. Well, there is. If they go head to head, you get side select. So in a vacuum, they already have the most, and you're arguing to give them even more power. And my point is, well, based off the logic you just used, you can't even guarantee that they were the best. They got lucky. They got lucky there first seed because TL and C9 imploded. They weren't actually ever the best in the regular season, were they? Or was TL just, as Dodo said, never able to play with their starting lineup, and they had to change coaches, and one of their players had migraines and stuff, right?
Yeah, I understand that, but also like to go along, because I want to bring it back to like the 100 Thieves playing their academy roster, because
let me give you one more point before we get into that, because that's a different discussion, and one I think doesn't quite. It's a different angle, and Park did tweet about that part too, but. The final thing I'll say is people always say, oh, well, it's best of one's the problem then. I got a lot of comments on my thing about how, oh, well, best of ones are the problem then. They don't accurately represent the strength of teams, which that's another can of worms. But what I'll say is
best of ones had nothing to do with what happened to TL. Do you think TL with Armao and Jenkins in best of 2 or best of 3 would have suddenly won them way more fucking games? No offense to those players, but like, aren't the issues that they were struggling with and why they were dropping games not because of best of ones? There's no, and this is my thesis, there is no regular season that will account for the total variety of things that can happen over the course of the season and then seed a playoff bracket that happens months later. It's impossible. Teams will slump, teams will peak, people will get benched, people will quit, people will vomit on their keyboards and get sick or get migraines. Or
wait, who vomited on their keyboard?
No one. I just made that one up. But
Okay.
like things will happen, and teams will slump and peak and valley in different points of the season. Metas will change. That's a great point that someone put in chat. You know, like Core JJ says, me first time chat from a viewer. Core JJ admits to throwing up on his keyboard.
Yes.
So my point ultimately, Tom, is that if you the point is that there's no such thing as a perfect way to seed a system. It does not exist. Something will always go wrong potentially. If your first seed gets to select their opponent, there's a world where your first seed actually sucks. It could have been us in 2015. We were if this playoff format existed in 2015, where Curse Miss Worlds and I was the coach in summer, we would have we were first seed, but we had to pick TSM because there was no reseeding in the bracket. I would have picked Tip. I would not have fucking picked TSM and gotten our shit pushed in by them and then had to play the 3rd, 4th place match. I would have picked Tip and made finals. And then we would have sent Curse to Worlds that year instead of C9 if this bracket thing was combined, you know?
Wait, Mark, would you have gotten to pick?
Yeah, we were first. We got first in the regular season.
I'm saying you would have picked. Would you, Mark Zimmerman, have gotten to pick in 2015?
Yeah. It was a huge... I was one of the coaching staff. We all would have picked Tip. No one would have fucking
I know. I
picked
was just
TSM.
teasing about... I didn't know. Dodo's laughing. So it was just a joke about you unilaterally getting to choose a different team.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
continue your point.
Great joke. I just mean that, like, there's no guarantee. I don't think we deserved Worlds by the time we lost playoffs, is my point. And so this could have easily been the situation with TSM where they pick EG, and you're right, they're a weaker opponent, but maybe TSM's not actually the 4th best. Even if EG is the 5th strongest team, TSM could still have been the 4th and pick them, and then we sent a weaker team to Worlds. You don't know. And that's why a lot of this hindsight, trying to figure out, no, TSM's actually the 3rd strongest, and they had to lose to the 2nd and 1st, but they dodged the 4th and the 5th. You start like wrapping your head in circles when it's reality. Like, you guys could only beat Immortals in playoffs. You didn't play the other 2 teams. Who knows what would have happened? But what happened was you could only beat Immortals.
Caller, I know Mark just had a very impassioned speech. You did have one other thing you wanted to mention, so I'll throw you out the other part of this conversation if you'd like.
I honestly agree with most of your points there. It's just like, I have to ask, what is the point of the regular season then?
To give time for teams to hit their peaks if they can, to gel together. I think TSM is the team that improved dramatically. If you just had a random tournament at the beginning, then like look at how they performed at lock-in or in the earlier portions of spring, you know? I think regular season from a viewership perspective, and you can start getting the actual economics and business model and all this stuff, it starts getting a very different can of worms than, to your point about is mostly a competitive integrity argument that we're having, But I would say the point of a regular season is to generally seed a bracket well, as best as it can, while acknowledging that there are faults. And then you just pick what you're happiest with. If you want the first seed to have side selection, again, my point is not that I really care, or not side selection, opponent selection. If that's the format that everyone agrees is the best, fuck it, sign me up. I don't care. But my point is just that there's always an issue. There's always a potential issue.
Mark is wrong, by the way. Regular season, you play 15 weeks of games, three days a week, not to seed it, but to make sure you get rid of that 9th and 10th place team. Okay, we don't want those in our playoffs.
Sure. Yeah, we had to be really, really sure.
We got to get rid of those two. Okay, we get those guys out of playoffs. That's what we're going to spend these 15 weeks on. Get them out. Okay, TomSoloMid, thank you for the call. I'm sorry. I know this was a setup. All right, Mark brought you in here. You didn't know what you were going into, but I did, and I felt bad. But I couldn't stop it. Is there anything you want to shout out before we go on to the next caller?
No, but I just like to say this is the second time I've been on the show in a row where it's kind of been a sting operation, because the first time I had to say to Peter Dunn that he wasn't the
That
coach of the
one?
split, and this time I was just being ranted at.
I will say the first one was great. It was so nice having you on to tell that to Peter. It was incredible. It was a lot of fun. You're
I think Mark also thought this one was a lot of fun. To be clear, I don't think that he thought.
I don't think I was ranting it. Well, I probably was ranting at you, but I was also just ranting at like this topic as a whole, because it's always going on, and you know, it's fun. I like ranting.
So is Mark just paying him to be on the show?
That is definitely not true whatsoever.
You know what? Here's what we'll do.
Travis,
Here's what we'll do.
give him a game caller.
Yeah.
Game
Well,
caller.
you are the Game Field Victory caller of the night. Hopefully, you can wash down any of the. So we don't have the therapy sponsor anymore for this episode, so I can't give you that. But I can give you Game Field to hopefully cope with what just happened. And we'll hook you up if you want to message me on Discord, TomSoloMid. I'll make sure that you got the information. So thank you for the call, and I appreciate it.
Will do.
Any shout outs for real though?
Mountain Dew Game Fuel, best energy drink on the market.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Have a good night, guys.
We'll catch you next time. All right, off TomSoloMid goes. Is Core JJ still in the chat? I see people messaging at him. Regular split exists to find a coach of split, says Core JJ. There you go. That's why it exists. Thank you, Core JJ. Apparently,
regular season determined it wasn't Team Liquid staff, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. The playoffs, I think, I was talking to somebody about that. I feel like Team Liquid in playoffs, you definitely would have seen them in higher contention. Okay. Thank you to Blaine Blasphemy, Pizza Messiah, Thiggity Thor, Harry Wow, Rico Suave, gifting a sub to Tim, who for some reason, despite how much I pay him, does not sub to my channel. Epi, Pamoya, PD Null gifted a sub to Core JJ. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. And David, Josh, Ollie, and Mr. End for the 6 months. Okay. Bangs is here. Bangs, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
Yep.
How's the ping these days?
8. Feels like it.
I remember it used to, in the glory days in the beginning, it used to be I could get 8 when I was in Santa Monica. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about how TL, C9, and 100 Thieves are the strongest combination of teams NA has ever sent to Worlds so far. No combination of 3 teams sent to Worlds from NA has been at this level. This is the best 15 players we are sending ever. All 3 teams are capable of winning a ring. All 3 teams are capable of playing an aggressive play style. Just looking at the teams in the history of our region, what other team has a higher peak than current TL? With Alfari Core, C9 with Perkz, and TL is looking like the strongest team right now, and even 100 Thieves can push them to 5 games, so I don't know.
Oh, boy. Okay, yep. Well, first off, is this the first time? There's one simple way to double-check this. Is this the first time we've sent 12 or as many as 12 import players to Worlds? Because that might be the simplest way to make sure these are the best 15 we've ever had. I think so.
I'm not sure.
Mark probably knows, but
what was it? If it's the most import
players, yeah, because he said this is the best 15 we've ever sent, and I know we're sending only 3 native North American players, so
it's got to be. Last year was TSM only had Speak, right? Double lift, and then you guys had Tactical.
Yep.
Only. Who was the third team? FlyQuest had a couple. They had Solo and Turtle and. Yeah, no, not them.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the most.
And Biofrost? Oh yeah, he was the support, not Treats. Sorry, brain fart. There was quite a few.
These teams were like jokes, though. Like, I don't know. Like if you look,
were they jokes? People were pretty hype on TSM last year, I thought.
I know, but like we have like Closer. He's playing like one of the best jungles in NA we've seen. We have Albadage, we have Perkz, we have Alfari, we have Core JJ. Like, what other 3 teams in our history has been this strong? Like, you can't name 3 teams.
In the past, you could say we had like Double Lift and Bjergsen, and I can't.
On one team.
Not always on one team. Oh, actually, I think there was a time. They've definitely both been at Worlds on different teams, but you might have to go all the way back to 2015,
Right.
to do it.
No, I actually don't think CLG and TSM ever went together.
Europe Worlds in 2015, I think, when they both didn't make it out. CLG beat TSM in the finals, and they both went.
Oh,
The
no,
Nationals
you're
were
right.
better
You're
one.
right. And it's Tsunami made the gauntlet. Yeah.
Regardless, whatever. So let's go into the annual Hotline League call, which we're having early this year. Of these are the best 3 teams we've ever sent to Worlds. Hashtag Hopium. Hashtag Copium. Okay.
It's the truth. It's the truth, though.
I mean, I don't want to feed you guys and everyone too much hopium, but for me personally, this is the highest chance that TL is going to have going into Worlds. In my opinion, with our play style, with the players that we have, I think we can make it far this year. And this is the 4th year that TL is going to Worlds.
I'm not listening. I don't hear this.
Dude, this is don't you hear it? Dodo's been here the entire time since TL started going.
Yeah, but it's easy. Okay, here's the thing. This is not one of those statements where like you get to say it in a vacuum. Every year, I feel like somebody says
World Finals, TL 100 Thieves,
the best lineup we've ever had. Like this is the team. And by the way, before people call me like a hater, I am trying so hard to keep the hopium out of my body.
Sounds like you're a hater.
This copium, man. Come on.
No, I think it's fair to. I think it's fair to say that if TL plays at their peak, if they don't reach semis, it's a choke. In my opinion.
Right, Dodo? Semis are bust.
It's a failure. If we don't win Worlds, it's a failure. I will say fuck out loud if we lose the finals.
Okay, so you guys can make finals, but not. And you know what, Dodo? You're just showing to me what I've always heard, which is that NA just doesn't have a winner's mentality. You're satisfied with just making finals but not winning? This is why NA teams will lose, because other regions, they go in and they think... Sorry, I'm just channeling other Hotline League callers.
Dodo, who are you losing to in finals at Worlds? You think it's C9 or 100 Thieves?
I think it's 100 Thieves. I think people are disrespecting 100 Thieves too much. I think they'll make finals at Worlds, man.
Yeah. I think it's C9 because Perkz can always clutch it out whenever he needs to in these desperate moments. Okay. All right. I'll toss. We got Dodo. Dodo, what about the other 2 teams? Are any of them... Are you vibing really good with any of these other 2 teams for their world chances? I mean, C9 has had... They didn't have a great performance at MSI. Probably not as bad as most people think, but they didn't have a great one. And then they had a pretty big summer slump. So I don't know if you're vibing with them for Worlds.
Let's see. TSM was last year. What was the year before? TSM?
I'll have to look. I don't remember. I think TSM missed 2019.
It was TSM, C9, and Clutch Gaming.
Clutch, yeah.
So I guess if we are saying, is it just the 3 teams, like 100 Thieves right now, I think is pretty strong. C9 right now, I think they're stronger than last year. So I think we have a pretty good argument, pretty good chance that these 3 teams are pretty strong.
Core JJ in chat said, I think Mad Lions are just happy to make a group stage finally. So already some of the trash talk is coming out. Okay.
I hope TL and Mad Lions end up in the same group again. Yeah. Run it back.
Oh, God. Okay, Mark.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Should I be letting the hopium into my veins?
All right, there's part of me that just wants to keep running and make you look like the sourpuss of the episode, but I don't know. On the one hand, I think like what Dodo's saying, I can see about TL, him feeling confident about them. I mean, like playstyle wise, I'm a lot more excited about this heavy top carry playstyle that they have kind of going on right now, and Jensen's been more flexible this playoffs and stuff, and so like I'm generally pretty happy with TL going to Worlds in their current form, and I think same goes for 100 Thieves. I generally feel good about their level of play, respective to the teams that we typically send. Like I don't think they're significantly better than like how our second best team has looked. If they are our second best team, but like, you know, right now, supposing they're our second best team, I don't think they look significantly better or worse than some of the other second place teams we've had. So I'm feeling fine. You know, I'm not feeling particularly hopeful or particularly sad. C9 is a weird one because I don't actually think they look that good right now, and I could see them having like an MSI level performance again. Like if you put this team as they are now into MSI as that tournament, they perform just like the same or worse potentially. So I'm still a little nervous about C9, but you can't deny that the potential is there. Like they could turn it on. They're gonna have a month of scrims against better teams. I think that they had the players that can improve and get a lot better with good practice. So like even C9, where like right now I'm not in love with how they're playing. Like I think it's I think these are 3 good teams.
Not to mention C9 going to Europe. You know, Perkz will be in his home solo queue environment.
He's got to show up. Yeah,
exactly.
Are you going back? You know,
yes.
I think being
Santorin's going back.
Yeah. Let's ignore the fact that the other 2 times it's been in EU, none of our teams made it out of groups. But we didn't send as many EU players over in those past times. So
true.
I think
for me, non-hopiumed up is I would like what I hope is that one of our team gets out of groups. That is the bare minimum for what I'll be like, nice, okay, good. I want us to win a best of 5, obviously, but
well, if you just look at like the play styles of all 3 teams, like none of these teams are scared to fight. If they're playing at their peak, you're gonna see an upset. These are 3 aggressive teams. You've seen it throughout playoffs. Like these teams will fight you, and they will fight these Koreans that are really playing a very slow play style this season. I've seen, and I don't know, Korea hasn't impressed me this season, and I think our teams have a great chance of beating them at least.
You know, there's a couple other regions as well. And by the way,
I think Mad's the only good team from EU though. I think 100T beat Rogue. I think C9 beat Rogue.
You're talking about these regions. The ones that have historically fucked us over are the wildcard teams. We just randomly drop games to those, and those are often the ones that push us out of contention because we'll have some crazy game. We'll go 1-1 with like whoever ends up winning Worlds that year, and then the final game it'll be like, okay, just tap it in. The Happy Gilmore, just tap it in. Just beat this random wildcard team, and then they'll just lose. And so you need to worry about that, I think, just as much as you need to worry about these top teams or top regions.
Usually it's a Taiwan team. PSG looked super strong. They went undefeated, you know. So I mean, it's usually that's the team that gives us a loss. I mean, they just got Messi as well, so it's a buff.
Yeah.
Well, in all seriousness, I think we get through play-ins like easily. Number 4 from LPL looks dangerous. I think it's probably going to be LNG or RNG, and RNG won MSI. So that's scary. And then number 4 from Korea, I don't really care about that. And yeah, I think I don't know. I just think it's our best chance in a while for all 3 teams to perform.
What? Go ahead, Mark.
What's performing for you, Banks? What do you want to see? All 3 get out of groups. One team get out of groups, win a best of 5, make semis. You know, like what do we? What's your goals? I know this is really early considering we don't know groups and stuff. Okay, just like really quick, what is it?
Right. So I think at minimum, all 3 teams go 3-3 and like go 50-50. So I think like at our peak, we can have like two teams getting out of groups. In reality.
I see Dodo shaking his head.
Like you say it's copium, but like
3-3 is not good to get out of Worlds, man. Come on, I was 3-3 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row almost with IMT2. You cannot get out of groups 3-3, man.
I'm saying triple teams going 3-3, no matter if they get out of groups or not. I think that's our minimum because like usually
so even if you get like three teams that go 3-3 and then none of them make it out.
0-6. Well, no, yeah, I think that's our minimum. Like I think our teams are gonna. Like regardless, all 3 teams are gonna win against the major regions, like at least one game, at least once.
Okay,
you're not gonna.
You came in here and you had me much more hyped on this train, and now you're like, They'll all go 3-3, regardless of if they get out of groups. At the very least, they'll go 3-3.
No, I'm saying yes, at the very least, and I don't think it's going to be the very least. I think they're going to overperform minimum. I think they're going to go above everyone's expectations. I think you're going to see at least one get out of groups realistically, and at most, you're going to see 2 or 3.
You are going to go 3-3 this year at groups if you don't sacrifice one of the teams to the league gods and force them to go 0-6. Which team are you sacrificing to the league gods and condemning to a 0-6 Worlds?
TSM.
They're not there. 100 Thieves or C9? Who would you rather make go 0-6?
I can't sacrifice them next month. It's NA Hopium. They're gonna go at least 3-3.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm just not. Oh God! Every time I believe, it just hurts so bad. I've just been hurt so many times, Scholar.
This is the year to believe. If there's a year to believe, this is the one.
I don't know about that.
Realistically, if factually and realistically.
Okay, but there were major years to believe before. When TSM, what was it, 2016 Worlds in North America, when TSM went and everybody was on board this, and people were saying that they were crushing people in scrims, and I did a million interviews with people, and they're like, "Oh my God, TSM is a huge contender for finals or whatever," and then they didn't it. Just
right.
I don't know if this is the year to believe, because I think there's been a lot of years to believe previously.
This is the year, Travis. This is the year.
Well, Travis, if you put our 15 players this year that are going to Worlds on paper and compare them to any 15 players we've ever sent to Worlds, you're not going to find a better 15, and that's just a fact.
Because the majority of those other 15 are retired and washed.
Right.
Okay.
Of course.
Biggs, thank you so much for the. Thank you. I know. I'm just teasing. What do you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
I don't really have no one to shout out. Shout out my girl. She's behind me.
Nice.
That's it.
Well, that's very, very courteous of you. Thank you so much, Biggs, for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
Yep. See you later.
I'm sure that's not the only call we'll have this before World starts about with the Hopium. Mark, you're muted.
More Hopium coming our way, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah. All right, we're gonna take a quick break to talk about Game Feel. Mark heard me say "all right," and he knew where I was going. We're going to talk about Game Feel. Game Feel sponsoring Hotline League. They, alongside Alienware, are both our 1-year-long sponsors. Really appreciate them coming on board for so long. And regardless of what's going on time zone-wise, if I'm in North America this year, I will be drinking Game Feel. It's going to be carrying me through the either the early mornings, starting the morning off at 4 a.m., watching Europe perhaps with a Game Feel. The same way that I would have been staying up late with a Game Feel if it was in China. Regardless, I really appreciate the support and sponsorship that they bring. Right now, tonight, I'm drinking the Charged Cherry Burst. There's been a bunch of people recently who, and this has been throughout the year, but I've seen this very recently where people saying, hey, I finally got a chance to try Game Feel, finally decided to order some, and God, I love it so much. And I really appreciate all those people who say that stuff. It makes me feel great to know that you guys are supporting the content that I make, because it's super helpful to have sponsors on board. Couldn't do all this stuff without sponsors, and Game Feel coming on, as I'm a fan of their product and they became a fan of my product here on Hotline League. It's just been fantastic. So be sure to go to gamefeel.com/Travis. There's a link in the description of the YouTube video if you're watching it there. If not, I will do the !GameFeel in the chat right now. And use code Travis when you check out to save on your order. And I think they ship almost everywhere in the U.S. right now. If they don't, for whatever reason, we also have a link there for Amazon. And ordering through there is nice, too, because we can track that and send that over to Game Feel so that they know that you are ordering in support of the show and the content that we create. So thank you again to Game Feel for sponsoring. Really appreciate that. Mark, you want to go grab what looks to be our final caller? Off he goes. Mr. End, thank you for the 6 months. Jaeger Bomb for 9. I Will Remain. Cuckoo, thank you for the 2 months. Jaffe, Duckanite, Mega Man Music for 18 months. Kinestic, PD Null, gifted a sub to Dumbass, which is nice to them, and Go Next Bro. So clearly, and then also to Bodied. So PD Null trying to send some messages through the gifted subs. We are here with Treethan. Treethan,
hello.
Welcome back to the show. You've been on before.
Yes, I have. I was on last week.
That's right. What was your call? What was your take last week?
Why am I forgetting off the top of my head?
Clearly, it was probably you predicting TSM winning or something.
Oh, it was the 100T import thing, I think.
Gotcha. Well, regardless, what do you want to talk about? Or remind us where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Jersey City, New Jersey.
That's right. Okay. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I think Perkz going to Worlds and not G2 is the funniest thing to happen in esports ever.
Really? Because there's a lot of funny things that happen in esports. I gotta tell you.
Yeah, but this has layers.
Okay.
Like, it is so fucking hilarious to me.
Okay, one quick question. Don't you feel like it would be funnier if Perkz and G2 didn't go to Worlds?
No, I don't think it'd be funnier.
Why?
Because
C9 fan?
Well, no, I don't like C9, but I think it's more funny because G2 not going to Worlds and Perkz going makes Carlos look like he has so much egg on his face.
Okay.
Like, it's literally like...
I did see some people saying this, but I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious why. Why? Because it doesn't necessarily make sense to me. So go ahead and explain.
So, from everything that was said about, like, you know, Carlos and the Perkz is my son's favorite uncle thing, and when he said that in response to how he was apparently, like, holding up negotiations with Fnatic in terms of Perkz going there because he basically had, like, Perkz' contract, so C9 had to buy that contract out. So I feel like because of this whole situation and how the G2 breakup with Perkz went, it just seems so funny to me that Perkz is going to Worlds and not G2.
But here's the, like, whenever I've seen this before, I've been kind of confused because people seem to resent the fact that Carlos did not let Perkz join an LEC team. But if he had joined a team, it probably would have been Fnatic. And arguably, I mean, I don't know, people could now have a conversation after this year about Niski versus Perkz, but arguably, if you're Carlos, you probably think Perkz going to Fnatic makes it even less likely that you get to go to Worlds because now you're making your strongest rival stronger, right?
Like, yeah, but at the same time, it's more about the whole way the process played out, right? Like, because he basically blocked that, but also I guess there could have been an option where Perkz even could have stayed at G2. You know what I mean? Like, I guess getting rid of Caps didn't seem great at the time, but let's say Perkz stayed and then he just sold Caps to C9 or something. What if they made Worlds then? Like, there's so many different variables where I feel like that just makes this entire situation hilarious to me, because Perkz going to Worlds and not G2 just seems like G2 like is obviously going to go through a bunch of roster changes next year.
I see the irony here in like okay, I get the irony of haha, Perkz went and you screwed him over. I just think it's tough for me because nothing about what has happened makes me feel like Carlos made, from a pragmatic perspective, and I know people can argue about the ethical side of it or the moral side of it or whatever, and a lot of people are like, well, it's like a family, etc. I'm not here to open that can of worms, but I still feel like from a pragmatic perspective, G2 not making Worlds, maybe it just means like, oh, you wouldn't have gone either way, so like you took a lot of heat, but then it's not like you would have gone even if he had joined Fnatic. But it's hard for me to feel like there's a lesson here for Carlos that's like you shouldn't have sold him to, his contract. Arians need to be better about saying it as a contract, but you shouldn't have transferred or sold his contract to Cloud9. That's the only thing. But maybe Dodo or Mark disagree with me. Maybe you guys think it's funny.
Well, I mean, like for Carlos's decision, and I know he even talked about it in public, saying, you know, this is, in the end, this is competition, this is business. And then, you know, him not sending him to Fnatic to make sure, you know, you don't make your rivals stronger. You know, I guess, for example, 2020 spring, we sent Doublelift to TSM. We played them finals in the summer, and we lost, right? So, you know, regarding all the ethical everything, in the end, for competition wise, he made the right choice, I think. But obviously, like if you want to factor in like the ethical stuff, the family stuff, they could be seen as hilarious. But I don't think Carlos did anything crazy wrong, as the owner of the team, and just him being also being a competitor himself.
Yeah, Mark, I'm kind of curious what your take is on this too.
I wasn't listening. Sorry. I had for a good reason. I'll maybe reveal it later. But
okay.
Was it just that G2 was unethical in what they did to?
No. It was just a matter of, is it funny that Perkz is going? I mean, it's literally just the base take, right? Which is, is it funny to you that Perkz is going to Worlds and G2 isn't? And is it funny from a haha Carlos perspective?
Momentarily, yes. Long term, maybe not. Like a lot of the guys on G2, I like and want to see them do well and stuff like that. And that's not to say that like, oh, I wish they were going over the teams that qualified with, Fnatic or Mad or whatever. But I just I memed it when I could. I think it was momentarily funny. I think the egg on your face is definitely there, but I don't think like it's a cosmic karmic like haha fuck you.
Yeah, I guess I get that it probably feels very vindicating. That's the best way to put it. It's like if you are a Perkz fan or an EU fan or something like that, and you think Carlos, you suck for having done this, I'm sure it feels funny and very vindicating to be like, haha, and now you didn't make it to Worlds, you jerk. But for me, I tend to not look at it from that perspective because I guess I'm not invested emotionally in that way. And so for me, I'm like, well, the logic still stands up. To Dodo's point, it's like if your goal is to make Worlds and you want to limit your competition from becoming strong. I mean, the other side of this is like when Kelby was on the show all the time, he loved to bring up the fact, this was obviously before Doublelift rejoined TSM, that TSM or Andy transferred Doublelift to Team Liquid, and then that helped transform Team Liquid from a team that previously had not been ever the best team in the region to like the powerhouse where they had the back-to-back thing, and on the other hand, TSM didn't make Worlds. And so like for me, I look at that case as like it is reasonable. Now, I think the issue with Carlos was he tried to kind of have his cake and eat it too in the beginning whenever he was like, oh, I'm always looking out, we're best. Like it almost would have been better, I think, if he just come clean in the beginning. Whereas I think he tried to be everybody's pal and then like created a lot of confusion and people were like, it doesn't seem like you're being honest in this, but from a logical perspective, I don't know. I don't see anything weird about it. But I totally understand why fans can feel it very vindicating to see it this way. Treethan. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Treethan, any shout outs? Anything you want to say?
Let's see, some shout outs. Shout out to Game Fuel. Shout out to Team Liquid Naruto merch that I still have yet to open because I'm too scared to open that. But
why?
Yeah,
you feel like it's like a collector item?
Yeah, because if I got the joggers and I got the Kakashi shirt. If I ever open them, I feel like I'll automatically ruin them by accident. So they're still in the bags.
The jogger is really cool. It's the best one. You gotta go on.
I honestly love Team Liquid merch, but like I just don't want to touch it or wear it. But shout out to that because it's great stuff.
Very good. Well, thank you, Treethan, for the call, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
All right, Mark. I know you've been working on some secret project here. Is it time to reveal it? I assume you're talking to somebody, a guest or something.
You should say goodbye to Dodo or like get his thing first.
Say goodbye to Dodo. Okay. Are we gonna
just do the wrap up thing?
Okay. Well, first off, I'm gonna shout out some subs. So thank you, Zogp and PD Null for gifting to fact checker, Jack Merritt for gifting to Tactical, Jargly, Soybeans, Sherman for 25 months, Mad Fishy for 18, Maury Wakes, Playsto Shown, PD Null ends here on Jimbus Cloud, and then also thanks everyone for watching the show. Dodo, How's it going?
Yep.
What do you want to plug? What do you want to shout out?
Shout out to the best sponsor, Alienware, for the show and for sponsoring our team. And also Honda, Twitch, Fuya, Secret Lab, HyperX, Monster, Jersey Mike, Spotlight, SAP, and IMC. I didn't practice that. You just have to. You have to know how to rap with your sponsors if you're a GM. But all those sponsors, partners, thank you, and to my great players, coaching staff, and all the fans that I am feeding hopium to, and you guys can enjoy it.
Dodo, is there any ADCs on your team that you'd like to shout out?
Oh, Yun and my past AD carry double lift.
Gotcha.
I can't think of anyone else.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, thank you, Dodo. For me, everyone should be sure to check out Rift Reaction, the show that I do with Emily Rand. It's available on Spotify because her and I are going to talk about a bunch of stuff. And I know we didn't talk too much about LEC on this episode, but I think Rift Reaction, especially for NA fans who don't pay attention to the international esports side of things, it's really cool to it's a great show because Emily's constantly teaching me about what's going on in other regions, and so it's great. It's a great place to pay attention for Worlds. So please check that out. Mark?
Yeah. So I'll let you decide. I don't want to keep Dodo
Wait,
here.
why don't you just message it in the Skype chat? So because I don't want if you say something.
It's something that I personally want to address a little bit, but I understand it's also not really a call, and it's more just like a topic.
Yeah, sure. If you feel passionate, let's do it.
Well, I just meant I don't know if Dodo wants to sit around for it or not. I understand it's going past time.
Yeah, it's fine. We can drop Dodo. Dodo, thank you so much for making it on the show. Really appreciate it. And
thanks, guys.
We will catch you next time.
See ya.
See ya.
Okay, what's up?
All
Mark?
right. Sorry, you want? I think Dodo did the thing where he left Skype. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be weird about it as much as I was. It was a topic I saw early in the night, and then I tried to DM a couple people, because it's a sensitive topic, because it's about sexism in esports. I don't know. Did you catch the next level this week?
I did not catch it. I know who was on it, and I know I didn't. Was there controversy around it?
No, not controversy. I don't think this is like a controversial take in any way. It was just that Space Ghost was on, and she was talking about women needing to prove themselves extra hard in the esports community's eyes because of misogyny and just a general assumption that they don't know what they're talking about or they whatever, and that she felt and she does need to prove herself more because the community is that way. And so it was something where there was a topic. I'm trying to find it now. It seems like it got deleted. Oh, someone had a topic that was following up on that made me be like, I really don't agree with that. That the person had in Twitch chat, which was like, well, I was gonna pull it, but then I didn't want to pull it, and then I didn't want to make Dodo sit around for this. So the person said, and I don't want to read their name out to get any hate on them, but it's like during the Meteos talk show, Double F, Sneaky, and Meteos followed up on that. I assume it was prompted by the next level thing. It was discussion about the experiences of women personalities in the scene, analysts and casters, whatever. And then this person, their take was, in this situation, I argue that the concerns of toxic sexism among the league fan community are overblown and typically select a few extremists as straw men. And then they wanted to cite the universally positive regard for Emily as evidence of, this not being a thing. And I just thought it was a ridiculous take, and I didn't want to blast this person and put them on blast, but I think it's so fucking stupid.
So here's what I will say. I think you and I are in a unique position, as are other people in this industry that have had the opportunity to work with incredibly talented women who have gone through this stuff, where we know a lot of what they face. Not all of it by any means, but I've talked to people. I don't know. It's these are not my stories to tell or whatever, so I'm not going to say who, but a lot of women that everybody knows are very visible and some that are not have talked about the challenges that they've faced in the space. And I think there are a lot of people who are ignorant to this stuff. And so they might see like, wow, Emily's getting a ton of praise, for instance, for her analyst desk stuff. I was honestly very surprised, and I've told Emily this, at how much good reception she got, not because I don't think that she's incredibly talented. I hired her at Yahoo because I thought she was amazing, but because in the past she has faced a tremendous amount of criticism that I think is particularly unfair, and still people in the chat say really shitty stuff about her. Like, people can go look at the Twitch chat during any time that she's on, and people will make remarks about her appearances and other stuff. I mean, I've talked to Shocks about this stuff, and I don't mind mentioning Shocks because she's been talked about this stuff before as well. But like, just because, like, I would ask if anybody's like listening to the show or watching it right now, and they think like, oh, this isn't a thing, I would ask people to trust me and trust the people who have talked about this publicly that it is. Like, just because you might not see it or maybe you're not paying as much attention, it like definitely is. And that's one of the,
yeah. I mean, so one of the things that people always say, and this is the one that kills me a lot, is that they say, and someone in Twitch chat literally just said this, oh, guys get hate too. And it's one of those things where, like, yes, guys do get hate too. Everyone gets hate on the internet. It is the internet. But like, there's levels, degrees, and angles that are different amongst people and stuff. And I think that's the one that I hate the most, is the like, well, this happens too, and so they're not getting anything special. And it's like, they really are. And like, every single person I've ever talked to in the space has more stories quantitatively and qualitatively worse stories than like the other people that I like, guys or whatever. You know,
I mean, there's just like, go ahead.
No, so I was gonna say, like, it's just people saying like, oh, X person is praised now, and I'm like, well, ask that person themselves. You know, don't assume that they're universally praised because the sexist comments get downvoted on Reddit, or you're not on their timeline, so you don't see what's getting tweeted at them. Like, you don't know the experiences that they had, and so to just assume that someone's getting universal praise because you like them and you generally see positive feedback doesn't mean that the sexist component isn't there as well, because they're not mutually exclusive. Like, someone can be universally praised even, or generally praised, let's say, and still have to deal with ridiculous shit, which is what happens. That is what happens. Even people who are liked in the communities.
I mean, and I think what I would ask people, especially a lot of the men that are watching this right now, is like, one, I wish that you guys, if you do not believe this is an issue, I wish that you would believe it whenever women talk about it. But if you're not willing to, like, you tune into this show probably to hear Mark yell at me and make fun of me and a lot of different reasons, but also in part because you trust us to be experts on the space. And like, we are letting you know that it is really shitty. There's a ton of sexism. It is really bad, the experiences that women have to go through, and the like, even just down to the very fact that like it feels like in the eyes of many people in the community, not everybody, but many people in the community, they start at kind of a deficit where they have to work extra hard to prove and validate that like they do care about League of Legends, they do follow esports, etc. We are like, we are in this industry, we are aware of this. I understand you might feel like you are also an expert in the way that this stuff works in the industry, but like, if you trust Mark and I on other topics about the industry, please trust us on this one as well. And then after you're done trusting us, start trusting the really talented women that talk about this stuff.
I was about to say, as a big asterisk, it should not work that way. You should.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Trust
but like,
Travis and I. How about you trust the people who are actually telling you it firsthand?
Yes, and that's my point, right? It's like, people in the chat right now are trying to argue with us. I'm like, you don't work in the industry. Like, we're in the same way that like, I hope people would be more likely to trust somebody in the industry's statement about like, I don't know, any number of different things, format stuff, or, you know, the way contracts work or something like that. I would hope that like, whatever you hear basically universally from everybody in the industry, like, this stuff is shitty, like that you would then buy it. It's weird that people seem to argue specifically about this and be like, oh, I am actually much more of an expert on this than anybody who's talking about this in this space.
I think people they haven't experienced it personally themselves. They're not close enough to someone who has. And two, I think, like the everyone gets it mentality is one of the biggest defenses I see of like, oh, it's not that bad for you. Everyone gets it. And I think that's just one of the biggest logical fallacies, because it's like, a red herring in a sense, where it's like, yeah, everyone does get shit on the internet, but it is not actually equal. It is, people can all get shit and people can be misogynistic.
Yeah.
Those both happen. Those are both true.
Yeah. I am lucky enough that when people don't believe what I am saying or think I'm an idiot,
I just don't see masses of esports people going out and attacking women. Is another comment. It's like, why would you? Where are you looking that you think that you would see this?
I've frequently.
And by the way, if you follow Shox, you probably actually have, if you've ever seen her comments, because she will retweet stuff, or like show her Instagram DMs or whatever. Like,
yeah. Well, either way, I'm glad we have such experts on the private messages and the experiences of women in the industry have from people who are not women in the industry. Ugh. All right. Well, anyway, thanks, Mark.
All right, I wanted to talk about it, and then I was like in some conversations at the very end to see if I could fit it in the show in a way without overstepping, kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, let me say this. Like, I know we are just two white dudes talking about this shit, and like, I honestly don't think that we are ever the best options for these conversations to speak to the experiences of women in the space. But like, at the very least, if I don't know. I am happy to dispute any of those stupid things that people are saying. Yeah. Anyway, that's the show. Mark, what do you want to plug and shout out?
Not much. Just want to dip out of here before it gets too much later.
Yes, that's true.
Oh, I did this or that this week.
Oh, nice.
Leak.
You heard it here. Thanks, everyone. This has been Hotline League. We usually record these at 7 o'clock. Well, we broadcast them live at 7 o'clock Pacific on Mondays in LA. And you can catch us here if you'd like to ever do that. Other than that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.